It's episode 679 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, we're talking about the Rangers losing a weekend series in Tampa and officially clinching a losing record. But Marcus Semien is having an absolutely fantastic season after that rough start. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan. And since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Monday, September 19th, and your Rangers are 63 and 83, officially clinching a losing record yet again. Thank y'all so much, though, for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day while we've got still a few weeks left in this MLB season. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. Now, let's get into this weekend's games. The Rangers at least did not get swept, but this is a really good Tampa Bay team. It makes sense. They are in the middle of a playoff hunt. They have a really great team from top to bottom. So the Rangers losing 2 out of 3 makes a lot of sense, and them getting their only win with Martin Perez on the hill, well, that just makes a little bit more sense. They started this weekend off right with some really good bullpen play, a big home run from Nathaniel Lowe against his former team, and a solid performance from Martin Perez. I wish I could have seen him go just a little bit deeper into this one. They did pull him after 91 pitches, but only 58 of those were strikes, and he was getting lit up just a little bit. And Jesus Tinoco, I got to give him a lot of credit. He came in to this one and settled it down with some runners on base. He was able to get out of that inning without allowing any more base runners and finish off that 6th inning. The Rangers then used a whole lot of relievers in this one, and all of them were fairly effective. Jonathan Hernandez went 2/3 of an inning, only allowed 1 walk, got a strikeout. Brett Martin came in, finished off that inning. Matt Moore came in, had a perfect inning. And Jose Leclerc, despite allowing a hit and a walk, was able to get his 6th save of the season. The Rangers were able to beat Corey Kluber and make me feel just a little bit better. This was the 25th home run of the season for Nathaniel Lowe, passing whatever random bar that I set for him. I think about 25 home runs was like, all right, if everything goes really, really well for Nathaniel Lowe, then I think he'll hit 25 home runs. And you know what? He's tapped into that power. He is up among the AL batting leaders. He is a few points behind them if he has another level, another gear to go into for this final stretch of games. It's final, I believe, 3-4 weeks left of games. I think it's just about 3. They play about 1 week in the month of October. But he's very much could go for that American League batting title. Right now, he is hitting 308. That is just a little bit below what the other leaders are hitting. I don't think they're going to catch anybody in the AL, but right now he is in the top 5 among batting average, right at 5th at 308 right now. Jose Abreu is ahead of him at 309. Luis Arias at 317. Xander Bogaerts at 316. And Aaron Judge at 316 as well. All 3 of those guys are really, really close below with a fantastic end of the season. Could end up getting close to some of those guys, but I'm not exactly sure that he is going to end up making it all the way there. But still, that is not going to discount what has been a fantastic breakout season for him. But the Rangers weren't able to put together much offense at all in this Saturday loss. The only run they got was off of a Jonah Heim home run, his 15th of the season. He's been looking a lot better lately, and I have just really loved what I've seen from him, finally having some resurgence after what has been a really, really rough second half for him. This was the most workload that he's had as a major league catcher. He didn't have a huge workload last season, but he's got a 2.5 WAR season. I thought he was on pace to absolutely blow his record of home runs, his career high of record home runs that he had last year in his first full season in the majors of 10. I thought he was going to blow that out of the water. Right now he's at 15. He was at 10, I believe, at the All-Star break. He might have even been at 12. Let me go double check that real quickly. The first half he was at 12 home runs. He's only had 3 since then, and 2 have come in the last 7 games for him. That has been a much needed improvement for him. him. September and October has been much better about him hitting for power. The average is still way down. The on base is still pretty far down in these last 2 months. He's really seen his OPS crater. In the month of August, it was all the way down to 541, whereas in July, he was still kind of kicking a little bit. Only had a couple of home runs in that month as opposed to the 4 he had in May and June each. But it came way down in August, and it's down to 571 in 12 games. In 12 games total, 10 of those were starts in September so far. But it's nice to see some improvement from him, and nice to see him get the only run on the board in this one. The other positive sign for this was another solid start for Jon Gray. Went 4 1/3 innings in this one, still getting his footing back under him. 67 pitches for him this time out. I think he might be around the 80 to 85 pitch mark. This was about the max limit that he would be able to do. He wasn't going to go out for the 6th inning. They decided beforehand that 5 times was the most they wanted him warming up. So it's good to see him come back out there. 4 1/3 innings for him in this one. 2 hits, 2 runs, both of which were earned, and a walk, and 4 strikeouts. That strikeout number is continuing to climb. He is the best strikeout starting pitcher that the Rangers have, and it's nice to see someone getting a bunch of strikeouts when the rest of the Rangers starting pitching staff is not, even if they are, doing their jobs to this point. They're still in a little bit of a rough way starting pitching wise. That, the only consistent starter they can count on, who's been healthy, who has been on it all season, is Martin Perez, and even he had a little bit of a scuffle for his really high standards that he's held himself up to this season. The overall numbers are still going to be fantastic. They still need to bring him back, but that last start against a Tampa offense that hasn't been the best this season, that's been the biggest knock on this team. Their bullpen is phenomenal. Their starting pitching is just ridiculous. Even with old man Corey Kluber is like one of the weak links of their staff, which is kind of crazy when a guy who's won multiple Cy Youngs is considered the weak link of your pitching staff. But still, that's how good this Rays team has been at developing starting pitching, and now keeping all those phenomenal flamethrowers healthy has been a bit of a struggle for them. But Corey Kluber has been consistent for them. The Rangers were able to beat him, but they were not able to beat the rest of these starters, including Ryan Yarbrough and a couple of former Ranger pitchers that dominated the Rangers on Sunday. We'll get into that a little bit more. We'll get into Marcus Semien's fantastic season and some records, a record that Corey Seager now holds of all of Major League Baseball. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. I told you last week, maybe don't bet on the Cowboys. Well, I guess I was pretty dumb for that. It looks like they might be not as terrible as expected without Dak. I wouldn't bet too much on it, but if you're feeling frisky about some college football lines, Texas and Texas Tech face off this weekend. They've got the Iron Skillet game, TCU versus SMU. That's going to be a lot of fun with the former SMU head coach, now at TCU, Sonny Dykes, coming back to Dallas. That's going to be a feisty matchup. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, because BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, let's look at some history that Corey Seager made. It's a very specific history that he set on Sunday, but it is history nonetheless. Of all time, Major League left-handed hitting shortstops. You know who has most homers in a single season? That's right. Before Sunday, it was Brad Miller. Believe it or not, in 2016, he had 30 home runs. He is a primary shortstop, lefty hitter. In 2016, he played 105 games at short and 39 games at first base, which is just absolutely bonkers. A guy, your primary first baseman, you'd think his secondary position that season, if he played more than 30 games, would be like third base or second base. No, it's first base, because Brad Miller might be the weirdest baseball player in history. But Corey Seager hit his 31st home run of the season on Sunday in a 3-5 loss, and that gave him the record over Brad Miller. 31 home runs, the only lefty shortstop who has hit that many in Major League Baseball history. Now, there haven't been a whole lot of of just left-handed shortstops. It's kind of a weird thing, but he is one, and he has been dominant for stretches this season. It's been a little bit of a rough patch for him as of late, but he does get that 31 home run mark. He is well over BetOnline's initial season over under on his home runs. I think they set that at like 26 and a half or something. He's been a 3.5 baseball reference for a player this season. His OPS is down under that 800 mark at 772, and it's like I said, it's been a bit of a struggle for him. Basically, since Tony Beasley took over, I'm not sure if anything of those are related, but there also have been a lot of road versus home games, and he has not had a lot of success on the road, but he did get his 31st home run of the season on the road at home. We've talked about this all season, and it has continued to be just an astronomical gap between his home and road splits. He's got a 905 OPS at home. Away, at the home games, he has exactly 300 plate appearances. On the road, 313. He's got a 649 OPS away from Globe Life Field, and I think really that home run uptick is just because he loves hitting at Globe Life Field. I mean, there's some players who love hitting at certain places, and he knew that he loved it here. I don't think he knew he'd have this much sustained success at home, but you know what? He really has, and all credit to him. Rangers just need to find a way to play more home games, and Corey Seager will have better overall season numbers. I think it is impressive what he's done this year. It hasn't quite been the other numbers have not quite been what I expected. The home runs have been a little bit higher than I expected. I didn't foresee him going on like I think he's right on like 35-ish home run pace. That would be amazing. And overall, the season I'd still say is a success. And we'll see what that shift ban does for him next year. I think it might have over-exaggerated the impact that it'd have on his numbers next year. But I do think it's going to be overall very positive. And I think that despite the actual numbers of like if you just grade it out now and the impact that has versus what it'll be in real life next year, and the added bonus of the added confidence and whatever of seeing more of those hits fall and him feeling himself a little bit more, I think that will have a little bit bigger of an impact. But I want to talk about Marcus Semien, the other high-paid Rangers middle infielder who is having a fantastic season. Right now, according to Baseball Reference, he is at 5.2 WAR for the season. Now, that doesn't sound like anything absolutely astronomical or world-beating or whatever, but you got to consider it in context of the Rangers. The Rangers haven't had a whole lot of great position players over the last 5 seasons. You know who the last 5+ Baseball Reference WAR position player was for the Rangers? I'll give you a minute to guess. You're probably going to miss it. Give up? It's 2017 Elvis Andrus. He had a 5.4 WAR Baseball Reference season in 2017. That was his fantastic breakout season. It was just a phenomenal thing to behold. The Rangers haven't had a 6+ WAR Baseball Reference season since 2016, last time they were in the playoffs. Adrian Beltre had a 6.7 WAR season back then. But that was a nice breakout season for Elvis, and it kind of shows how rough it's been for the Rangers. Now, could there have been some other players that if they had stuck with the Rangers, they'd had a full season, had gotten there to that 5 WAR mark, according to Baseball Reference? Maybe. Joey Gallo in 2021 had a 4 WAR, 3.1 WAR in 2019, and then in 2021, in 95 games, he had a 4.2 Baseball Reference WAR. IKF in that shortened 2020 season had an exactly 2 WAR, according to BBRef. And if that had played out to a normal season, maybe that could have stretched all the way up to 5, but you kind of had to squint and maybe and if and whatever. And the Rangers just have not had a lot of great position players. I thought they were going to have 2 this season. I thought they were going to have multiple because Corey Seager was on pace for that. But right now he's at 3.5 WAR. Unless he has an absolute tear towards the end of the season, which it is possible. He can most definitely have that. There are quite a few home games coming up, so he could start feeling himself just a little bit more, can tee off on this Angels team this week and get that all the way up to 5. The next closest are Nathaniel Lowe and Adolis Garcia, who at 3.3 WAR each. Martin Perez is just below it, 4.7 WAR. I definitely think he'll get there by the end of the season. I don't know if he'll get to 6th. I'm not sure if Semien will, but Semien has been on an absolute tear as of late the last month. We talked about him last week, how he finishes strong every single season, gets better as the year goes on, which is why he has not had as many all-star selections as he probably deserves. But let's look at the last 7 days. The last 7 days, he's got 7 games under his belt in that time. 2 home runs, 4 doubles, and a triple, hitting .419 on base of .438, slugging .807. That is a 1244 OPS in the last 7 days. And, for the month of September and towards the end of August, the only problem with his offense is that he wasn't hitting nearly as many home runs as he had in months prior, but he's fixing that in these last couple of games. The power swing is coming up just a little bit, and in the second half, you look at what he's done, and it has been excellent so far. 56 games, 10 home runs in that time, an OPS of .802 versus .697 in that first half. The on bases up to nearly .320. The slugging is .483. That is more what the Rangers envisioned they were getting when they signed this guy to a massive, massive contract. And I have loved seeing him get better throughout the season. His defense has been so good, but let's take a look in just a second and see where he stacks up among other second basemen, because I think he is right up there among the best like he was last season. Maybe not quite at that insane pace, but still a very impressive turnaround after a very rough start to the first 2 months of this season. But first, this word from our sponsors. Now, Baseball Reference is for Baseball Reference. You're either a Fangraphs or a Baseball Reference person, and usually you are not both. I try and use a little bit of Baseball Reference and Fangraphs, but at my heart, once you're started on one, you kind of get stuck on them, and it just so happens that Baseball Reference seems to be a little bit more kinder than the players that I'm usually trying to make points about than Fangraphs WAR is, and I just like that a little bit better. Marcus Semien is much more loved by Baseball Reference's WAR formula. I don't know what exactly the difference is, but according to Baseball Reference WAR, he is in third place among second basemen in Major League Baseball. He is behind only Tommy Edmond at 6.5 WAR and Andres Gimenez of Cleveland at 6.4 WAR. He is ahead of Jeff McNeil of the Mets and Jose Altuve, so I like that formula a lot better, and I figure you would too. If you use Fangraphs WAR, nothing against you. But it just likes Marcus Semien a lot less. According to Fangraphs, he has been a 3.9 WAR player this season. The leader is Tommy Edmond at 5.6, then Andres Gimenez at 5.4, Jose Altuve at 5.3, and Jeff McNeil at 5.1. I don't know what the difference is there, but they really don't like Marcus Semien, and they like Jeff McNeil a whole lot better. All those guys are above 5 WAR, where in Baseball Reference, some of them are barely above 4. I don't know exactly what the differences are, and I don't think they would tell you what they are because it's their own proprietary formula. But if you want to look at some of the counting stats, he's right up there among the best in second baseman in home runs. He is just behind Jose Altuve. He has 23 on the season. Altuve has 24, with a slightly better finish to the season, which I think he's going to have. Like we said, he finishes pretty strong, and Jose Altuve might have some more games off because they are so far ahead, and he might just take it a little bit lighter because he's trying to conserve himself for the postseason, where the Rangers don't really have to do that. But so he's second in home runs. In stolen bases, he is also second. He is behind Tommy Edmond. Edmond has 31 this season, and Marcus Semien has 24, which is by far a new career high. The strikeout rate has been phenomenal. He's got a better strikeout rate than Tommy Edmond. Edmond is at 17.4, and Marcus Semien is at 16.2. His walk rate is a little bit better than Edmond as well, at 7.2% walk rate and 6.9% walk rate for Tommy Edmond, which I think is pretty nice, but I think Marcus Semien is just a little bit nicer. You look at some of the baseball savant numbers, and they're still not as kind to him. I would have thought by this fantastic finish to the season, even the last couple months, I mean, you looked at his these savant numbers early on in the season, they were just abysmal. And for the most part, they're still not great. They're still not kind to him. His average exit velocity is in the 15th percentile, hard hit rate in the 16th. Expected slugging, batting average, and WOBA, as well as barrel percentage, have moved up from he was in the teens earlier in the season to now those are all in the 30s, except for expected slugging. That's all the way up to the 44th percentile, but he's still holding strong in the strikeout percentage. The strikeout rate has gone way down from where it was last year, down 4%. He's at 16.9% as opposed to 20.2% Last year, he has had the best strikeout rate since 2019, where he struck out below 14% of the time. Now, the walk rate has also got down. I think that will continue to get better next season. Like we said last week, he is a big routine guy, and him going to a new place, hitting in a new position in the lineup, a new stadium, all that new stuff. He was still trying to figure out his routine. Now it seems like he's found it, and he is back to the player the Rangers knew he could be when they signed him. Defensively, those numbers do like him a little bit better at Baseball Savant in the top 5% outs above average. That is fantastic. Sprint speed still way up there. Chase rate, whiff rate, K rate, all of those are much better. And the max exit velo finally is up above the 50 percentile mark in at the 64th percentile. So all those numbers are trending upward. The final few weeks of the season, we'll see how well he finishes it. I think he's going to finish it much better than he started and continue this ridiculous pace. I don't know if he's going to have like a 1200 OPS for the final 3 weeks of the season. I wouldn't be surprised. We saw him do that in the month of June. Once he hit that first home run, everything just clicked and he was fantastic. And I do really like what I'm seeing from him so far, and it is very encouraging after that rough start. But some of the other guys, you look at the other top 5 in Baseball Reference, we're seeing them continue to climb up and up and up in Garcia and Lowe, and, well, not as much Seager, but Martin Perez as well. I do like the trajectory of this team, assuming they can keep Martin Perez on the hill. But there is one more guy that I want to talk about whose contract is in question as of next year, and I've had a little bit of questions at it, and I've looked a little bit more at it. But this is Jose Leclerc. He has an option for next season, actually has an option for the next 2 seasons with the Rangers. Next year, it is worth $6 million or a $750,000 buyout in his age 29 season, and the season after that, he has a $6.25 million team option. I don't see a buyout on that, so I think there is no buyout on that. If they don't buy him out in 2023, I'm not sure if it's a 2-year option, if they immediately take both of them, or it's 2 different options that you either have to pick up all of it or you can choose year by year. But with some of the recent blown saves, I've been a little bit hesitant for the Rangers to go and spend $6 million on him next year. But then I went back and looked a little bit closer at the numbers. For this year, in 35 games, he has been a 0.8 Baseball Reference WAR player on the season. He's got 47 strikeouts in 43 2/3 innings and a 3.09 ERA. That's solid. That's not world-beating, but it's solid. It's definitely worth $6 million, I would say. He's a guy who can go multiple innings, who you can rely on in the 9th inning. The Rangers are feeling a little bit more comfortable putting him in there. His stats haven't been quite as great in that 9th inning, but still he has been fairly reliable of going those multiple innings. He's missed 2 years, and he's back, and it feels like he really hasn't dropped off at all since where he left off before the injury. I am really glad that the Rangers have been able to have him in this spot. And the month of September and October, it was a rough month of August for him. He had just not quite as great of numbers. It's been a little bit better in the month of September and October, 8 games there. He has an OPS against him of 584. That has been really, really nice to see. A 2.35 ERA in the month of September so far. Finished off 7 of those games, 4 saves in that span. Really nice stuff. The walks have been a little bit worse in this month, though. He only had 4 walks in 17 2/3 innings in August, and in July, in 7 2/3 innings, he's already got 5 walks. That's not great. That is not what you're wanting, and I think that's something he definitely needs to clean up. But he is not allowed a home run this month, so he hasn't been quite bitten on the butt for it. Like I said, in that 1 save opportunity this weekend, he did allow a couple of base runners on a walk and a hit, but he was able to get out of it. Even though he didn't have any strikeouts, he was still got that nasty, nasty stuff, and I think that he is absolutely worth that $6 million option. I think they'll probably end up picking it up in the 2024 option as well. If it is a 2-year option, I still think they feel confident enough to go and get him, because I did an episode, I believe it was last week or maybe the week before that, on what it would look like if the Rangers spent big on some of these big name free agent relievers and how reliable they have been. You've got a guy who you can trust, who has been dependable when he's been healthy. He missed 2 years and still looks like his old self. That is a really, really nice thing for the Rangers. You draft and develop this guy. He has got a super bonkers weirdo arsenal with 2 changeups. Yes, 2 changeups. It's not a slider. I'm going to continue to say that until announcers finally get wise and call it the cut changeup or the Slavio that it is. It's not a slider. It is a bonkers weird double plus pitch that only this guy throws, along with a really, really effective fastball with some really high velocity and high spin rates. He is a dependable guy. Again, we talked about it. Most of these really good Rangers relievers can go multiple innings if they need them. Jonathan Hernandez, Matt Moore, Jose Leclerc, even Taylor Hearn, and Brock Burke as well. I think both those guys should definitely stay. And Dennis Santana, who is sometimes effective, been much less effective in the second half, but he has had his moments as well. But I really like what I've seen from him, and I definitely think the Rangers should end up picking up that option. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to look a little bit at this Arizona Fall League roster that was announced, and tomorrow is Tuesday, and I haven't said anything about this on the podcast, but for the Dallas Morning News, I'm going to be credentialed for that game. It'll be the first Rangers game I've been credentialed to since, I think 2017. It's been a hot minute. Definitely the first credential game that I have at this new Globe Life field. So I'll have a lot of insight there, some insights on what it's like to be credentialed at this new stadium. And, who knows what other kind of golden nuggets I will have while I'm there. But that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.